Welcome back. I am John P. Today we're going to be covering 5 countries that you can get the best prices on watches. Now that we will be talking about watches out there in the aftermarket, things like pre-owned watches, not necessarily the retail prices. When we get into retail prices, things become a little bit more nuanced with taxes and standardization and currency conversion. So things like that do change quite a bit, especially when you consider some countries have distributors that are the sole and only importers of the brand into the country, which we will talk about in a second. But these are going to be 5 countries that if you're out there looking for a watch, maybe it's a pre-owned Rolex, maybe it's a pre-owned Omega, or just gray market, you know what I mean? These are going to be the places where you are sure to get the best price. Now, I also do want to say as a caveat, I'm not going to be talking about customs or any kind of rules or ways that may add or detract from the value lost or gained in the watch that you buy. Sometimes customs can be a little bit tricky and these things do change, but at least looking at the prices and what they sell for, if you were to go there, that would be the case. May not necessarily be on eBay or Chrono24. Platforms have fees, but go to these places and you're almost certainly guaranteed to get the best prices. And I know this because as a longtime dealer with Delray Watch, and also trading and working with so many people, collectors, other dealers, these are just actually pretty much just facts at that level. People know this in the industry. So the first place, this is going to be the more difficult of the places probably for you to get a watch, is China. Yes, China for a number of reasons, but largely, and this will be a trend that we'll kind of follow in some of these countries we'll talk about, the tighter their monetary control and how the country acts when controlling money coming in and going out. That has a lot to do with watches because watches are a big avenue for people to potentially take money out of a country or bring money into a country. Not going to touch too much on that. You get the idea. But this market, particularly for goods and luxury goods, has been one of the largest within the last 5 years. Bit of a pullback now, and because of that, that means really low prices on watches, and they just can't start selling from China onto places like Chrono24 or eBay. They're in a different ecosystem when we talk about the luxury watch market. There's different nuances and things that those businesses located there on mainland China have. So if you do take a visit to China or you go there, you will find some unbelievable prices on watches, some truly head-scratching prices where you just can't believe it. I mean, you would be compelled to pretty much make the purchase there, like immediately. Some of the numbers I see and what people are able to do, once again, very nuanced, but that takes us into Hong Kong. And there are some dealers that I've heard of, I don't know specifically what they're doing, but there are some trade partnerships and agreements apparently between China and Hong Kong where dealers and other traders, or maybe people that have connections to both Hong Kong and China, they're able to have businesses in both of those locations or trade zones. And because of it, there is a higher price in Hong Kong, and they have more of an exposure to the West and to the US and to Europe, the other bigger watch buying markets. And so people can go there and it's easier to do business with their more English speakers and still really great prices. But not quite as low as China, but added security and easier to do business there and to buy a watch without any kind of nuance. So Hong Kong, another great place. That takes us into Japan. Now, I'll inject a little bit of opinion here and a little bit of, historically, Japan hasn't really been a big consumer of pre-owned goods. Things have changed, and there have been many pawn shops and large corporations that have these locations, sort of like pawn shops in Japan, where collectors or consumers can really just go sell their expensive purse, sell their expensive watch, and these companies will essentially send the watches out to other companies and trading partners around the world. And because of this, that's why the economics work so well. And that's why if you go there and you go shopping in the pre-owned places, I mean, Grand Seiko is a prime example. I mean, you can get Grand Seiko for much less than you would be buying it in the US. But you have to go there, or maybe you're there. If there's people out there that are watching this from Japan, I mean, please chime in, because truly you can get some unbelievable gems, not only in terms of pricing, but also some really fine condition items because, once again, historically, pre-owned goods haven't performed like they do in the US, and that hasn't always been as attractive. So you get some really nice, fine condition watches there for very favorable prices. Now this one takes us into an incredibly nuanced place where you can get unbelievable prices on watches, though this isn't going to be easy for many people unless, of course, you have some type of connection to the country, and this is Russia. Now, before we had what's going on in the world right now with Russia, you could go there, and what people would do is very similar to Japan. They'd have pawn shops and things. So obviously they speak Russian, so it would be much easier for someone that has conversational skills in Russian because they'd be able to do business there, right? Go figure. If you can put another barrier to making the watch deal happen, that's going to probably lower the price. And the language barrier is going to do that because there's less buyers, because you have to be able to pretty much communicate, at least in person. And also things like shipping and customs have changed, and it's been more difficult getting things in and out. Now, I'm not saying that I've done any of these things. I'm just sharing with you what I've seen happening out there in the industry. But you'd have people that were, maybe ties to Russia, but they live in the US, or the ties to Russia, but they live in other countries, and they'd maybe go there. And I know there are some dealers out there that had some export way through Finland. I don't know all the details or how that works with those countries, but they had different ways of setting it up to kind of introduce the pre-owned watch market to the rest of the world. I'm not really sure if that's currently still going on, but this is at least something that happened in the past. And of course, the prices were incredibly favorable for those people that were purchasing the watches there. Once again, obviously an incredibly nuanced place right now, but still a place I think there's opportunity, certainly in the future. And last takes us to a country that comes up in conversation all the time, but very little does it come up in the conversation of watches. This is India. Now, India is a really massive market for so many things, including luxury goods. That being said, the distribution for watches in India is largely controlled by one company that imports the majority of the brands and distributes them to authorized dealers through them. There's intricacies, much like some of the other countries that I mentioned, with the handling of import goods and, of course, the exporting of certain goods, which, of course, luxury watches does fall into that category. But because of this, and also the limited buying and the limited ease that it is for selling watches to the international market, like on places like Chrono 24, where the shipping can be a bit of an issue or a hassle, especially when we start talking about the insurance costs. And so India is truly, I believe, a pretty untapped market when it comes to pre-owned. There's one or two companies, I've had some communication with them in the past, that deal in this type of thing. But I think that it's really set up and poised to be a big market in the very near future for pre-owned watches. And I think we'll see a big growth of introduction of watches that are currently there. There's tons of watch collectors there, but I think we're going to see a growth as we get a little bit more internationalized with the watch collecting community in some of these overlooked locations. I think we start introducing more of those watches into places like the US. And I think it'll be a good thing to get those extra examples out and expose them to collectors so that they can also put them in their collection from different parts of the world. But at least right now, if you have some ties or connection to the place, you can get really great prices on watches. What do we all think out there? Have any of you had any maybe great experience buying or selling a watch internationally through another country? Maybe you've gone on vacation and were very surprised that you found a watch at such a phenomenal deal. I would love to see it and hear it in the comments below. Please do not forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I appreciate it. Again, you can find me on Instagram, The Real John P, and we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P.